They made us laugh, but their lives fell apart. Welcome back to the channel. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you probably remember those bright-eyed, lovable child stars who seemed to have it all. But behind the sitcom catchphrases and blockbuster hits was a darker, disturbing reality no one wanted to talk about. Today, we're diving into the disturbing reality of child stardom in the 80s and 90s, a story about the fame trap no one saw coming. If you're into these deep dive exposés on pop culture's forgotten truths, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Let's get into it. The allure and illusion. Back in the 80s and 90s, child stars weren't just famous, they were idols. They embodied every kid's fantasy of being adored by millions, making piles of money, and getting to skip school for movie sets. Think Macaulay Culkin, Gary Coleman, Drew Barrymore, Corey Feldman. These kids seemed to have it made. But while the world saw glitz and glam, what they didn't see was the suffocating pressure to perform at an adult level, while their brains and emotions were still years away from maturity. These kids weren't growing up on playgrounds. They were growing up on studio lots, under the watchful gaze of producers, agents, and an audience of millions. Genuine affection was often replaced by applause and approval ratings. The grueling work hours, high expectations, and constant scrutiny weren't just stressful. They robbed these kids of any semblance of a normal childhood. Many of them missed out on essential developmental milestones, like forming meaningful friendships, attending regular school, and having the freedom to simply be kids. The result? A generation of stars thrust into adulthood before they were emotionally equipped to handle it. The system was broken. A huge part of the problem? The legal system. You'd think with so many kids working in entertainment, there'd be solid protections in place. Not so much. The Culkin law meant to protect child actors' earnings was riddled with loopholes. Parents still had alarming control over their kids' finances. Just ask Gary Coleman. After years on different strokes, his parents and advisors walked away with most of his fortune. Macaulay Culkin faced something similar. By the time his parents' custody battle rolled around, he learned his father had kept him in the dark about his multi-million-dollar earnings. Culkin eventually had both parents removed from his trust fund just to protect what he had left. And beyond money, child labor laws didn't fully cover the entertainment industry. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 exempted show business, leaving child performers at the mercy of state laws, many of which were shockingly lax. This lack of consistent protections led to widespread exploitation. Young performers could be overworked, underpaid, and placed in emotionally harmful environments with little recourse. In the 80s, there were even attempts to relax these federal protections further, aiming to allow longer work hours for young actors and pay them below minimum wage. Thankfully, most of these were blocked, but not before causing considerable harm. The parents' role, savior or exploiter. Parents were supposed to be protectors, but too often they became part of the problem. Driven by the promise of fame and fortune, sometimes even their own lost dreams, some parents pushed their kids into stardom at the expense of their mental and emotional health. Corey Feldman accused his parents of exploiting his earnings, while his mother allegedly subjected him to abuse. And he's far from alone. The same story played out for countless other child stars. The industry structure gave parents enormous control. From signing contracts to managing finances and working hours, the balance of power often favored adults who didn't always have their child's best interests at heart. Even well-meaning parents could become seduced by the trappings of celebrity culture. Psychological and emotional toll. All this led to a staggering emotional toll. When your identity and self-worth are tied to applause and approval from strangers, it's only a matter of time before cracks start to show. Many of these child actors suffered from what psychologists now call child actor syndrome: anxiety, depression, burnout, and serious identity issues. Drew Barrymore was in rehab by age 13. Dana Plato of Different Strokes battled addiction for years before dying from an overdose. River Phoenix, gone at 23. Fame came with intense public scrutiny, relentless work schedules, and a loss of childhood innocence. When the shows ended and the fans moved on, Many of these young stars were left adrift, unprepared for life outside the spotlight. One of the tragic patterns that emerged was substance abuse. As early as their teenage years, many child stars turned to drugs and alcohol as coping mechanisms. Jodie Sweetin, known for her role on Full House, struggled with addiction for years, while Corey Haim and Corey Feldman became cautionary tales of what fame without protection can do. The Nickelodeon era, a toxic microcosm. The 90s Nickelodeon era, once hailed as a kids' TV paradise, later revealed one of the most toxic behind-the-scenes cultures imaginable. At the center of it was Dan Schneider, a producer behind hits like All That, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, and iCarly. Schneider was accused by multiple staffers of running a toxic, abusive workplace rife with gender discrimination and inappropriate conduct. Viral videos have since spotlighted the disturbing, often hypersexualized content in his shows, scenes that didn't raise eyebrows back then, but look appalling today. The documentary Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV cracked this whole conversation open. It revealed how convicted sex offenders like Brian Peck and Jason Michael Handy worked on Schneider's sets, abusing their positions and leaving lasting trauma on young stars like Drake Bell. The culture enabled these abuses for years, protected by contracts, NDAs, and corporate indifference. Even more disturbing was the sexualization of young actors through suggestive sketches and scenes thinly veiled as comedy. Former Nickelodeon stars have since come forward describing an environment where uncomfortable content was normalized and objectifying jokes were part of the script. Lasting damage. For too many, the damage didn't end when the camera stopped rolling. Many former child stars battled severe addictions, PTSD, and depression for years. Jodie Sweetin of Full House, Corey Haim, Tatum O'Neal, Melanie Griffith, Brad Renfro, the list goes on. Fame came at the price of their well-being, and society only began to reckon with it decades later. Others, like Jeanette McCurdy, documented their pain in memoirs and interviews, detailing the relentless control and manipulation they faced as children. In her book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, McCurdy reveals how adult expectations and industry pressure suffocated her sense of autonomy. It wasn't just about addiction or depression. Many former child stars also faced difficulties navigating adulthood in general, struggling to build careers, trust others, or lead stable personal lives. The emotional scars of being treated as commodities rather than children left them in a permanent state of arrested development, longing for a childhood they never had. A call for change. Thanks to documentaries like Quiet on Set and Brave Survivors Speaking Out, public awareness is finally catching up. There are growing demands for better legal protections, independent child welfare advocates on sets, and real accountability for the adults in charge. New industry guidelines now propose having licensed therapists available on set, allowing child actors to express discomfort and opt out of scenes or roles that make them uneasy. There is also a push for tighter restrictions on working hours, mandatory financial safeguards, and independent oversight bodies to investigate complaints. And maybe, just maybe, we're moving toward an industry where child actors are valued for who they are, not just what they can sell. If you found this video insightful, hit that like button, drop a comment about your favorite 90s kid star, and don't forget to subscribe for more revealing deep dives. Until next time, stay curious.